The dark truth about JFK and a 15-year-old Elizabeth Taylor finally revealed. Born Elizabeth Rosamond Taylor on February 27, 1932, in Hampstead, London. Her early life gave little hint of the whirlwind that was to come. Her parents, both Americans living abroad, were far from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. Her father, Francis, was an art dealer, and her mother, Sarah, was a former stage actress who had retired upon marrying. But from the moment she was born, there was something undeniably special about Elizabeth. Stories abound of her incredible beauty, particularly those striking, double-lashed violet eyes, which captivated anyone who met her. Even as a toddler, her appearance was so remarkable that strangers would stop her mother on the street. The looming shadow of World War II forced the family to return to the United States in 1939, settling in Los Angeles. It was a drastic change for the young girl, leaving her home country and entering a completely new environment. This period of upheaval marked one of the first major shifts in her life, setting the stage for even more dramatic changes to come. Her mother, perhaps seeing the potential in her daughter's extraordinary looks, began to think about Hollywood. The innocent young girl, with her striking appearance, was about to be thrust into an industry that would demand everything from her. Hollywood in the late 1930s and early 1940s was a land of dreams, but also a place of ruthless ambition and strict control by powerful studios. For a young girl like Elizabeth, breaking in was both a chance of a lifetime and an entry into a world she was completely unprepared for. Her initial attempts were somewhat hesitant. A family friend suggested Sarah take Elizabeth for a screen test. She signed a short-term contract with Universal Pictures in 1941, but, incredibly, after just one film, There's That Woman, her contract was not renewed. Universal told her mother that the child's eyes were too old for her body, and she didn't have that something. This early rejection could have crushed many, but Sarah Taylor was persistent. They soon secured another screen test, this time with the legendary Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, or MGM, the studio with more stars than in the heavens. And this time, the result was different. MGM saw the potential, recognizing the raw, undeniable star power in those famous eyes. Elizabeth was signed to a long-term contract in 1942 at the tender age of 10. She began with small role, learning the ropes of a demanding industry. But her big break came quickly. In 1944, at just 12 years old, she starred in National Velvet as the horse-loving Velvet Brown. The film was a massive success, and Elizabeth Taylor became an instant child star, beloved by audiences worldwide. But beneath the surface of this charming success story lay the reality of the studio system. MGM, like other major studios, exerted almost total control over its contract players, especially the young ones. Their image, their roles, even their personal lives were meticulously managed. Elizabeth was a valuable asset, and the studio aimed to shape her into the perfect star. By the time she was 15, around 1947, Elizabeth was no longer just a child star. She was transitioning into a young woman, poised for leading roles. She appeared in films like Cynthia and Life with Father, playing more mature characters. The late 1940s and 1950s saw her star power explode. She captivated audiences in dramatic roles, proving she was more than just a pretty face. Films like A Place in the Sun in 1951 showcased her depth as an actress, earning critical acclaim. She followed this with hits like Giant, 1956, and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, 1958, earned her an Oscar nomination. The 1960s brought even greater heights. After several nominations, Elizabeth finally won her first Academy Award for Best Actress for Butterfield 8 in 1960. She was at the absolute zenith of her fame, recognized globally not only for her talent, but for her stunning beauty and captivating presence. Then came Cleopatra, a film production so massive, so chaotic, and so expensive, it nearly bankrupted 20th Century Fox. Elizabeth Taylor was paid an unprecedented $1 million for the role, a record at the time, cementing her status as one of the most powerful stars in Hollywood. But Cleopatra wasn't just famous for its scale and budget. It was during this production in Rome that the world watched, mesmerized, as Elizabeth Taylor began a torrid, scandalous love affair with her co-star, Richard Burton. Both were married to other people at the time, and their very public, passionate relationship became a global sensation, earning condemnation from the Vatican and sparking headlines worldwide. This was Elizabeth Taylor at her most visible, most desired, and arguably most notorious. She had cultivated an image of glamour, strength, and independence. She was a woman who didn't shy away from controversy, whose personal life was as dramatic and talked about. While the public saw the dazzling rise of a superstar, Elizabeth Taylor's personal life, even in her teenage years, was far from simple. Under the constant watchful eye of MGM, her social interactions, her dates, her every public appearance were carefully orchestrated. She was groomed, protected, and marketed. By age 15, in 1947, Elizabeth was already a sought-after presence at Hollywood events and social gatherings. She was navigating the tricky waters of adolescence while simultaneously being treated as a valuable, marketable commodity by the studio. She was innocent in many ways, yet exposed to a world of adult desires and power dynamics she was ill-equipped to handle. Around this same time, a young, ambitious politician named John F. Kennedy was making his mark on the East Coast. Born into one of America's most prominent and powerful families, JFK, then just 30 years old, had been elected as a congressman representing Massachusetts in 1946. He was handsome, charismatic, and already moving in elite social circles that spanned politics, wealth, and yes, even touched upon the burgeoning world of celebrity. How would a young, carefully managed Hollywood starlet from the West Coast cross paths with a rising East Coast politician? Hollywood and Washington, D.C. weren't as separate as they might seem. Elite parties, fundraisers, social events hosted by wealthy industrialists or powerful figures often brought these worlds together. It's plausible, even likely, that their paths could have crossed during this period, perhaps at a formal dinner, a grand party, or through mutual acquaintances in high society. Elizabeth, a rising star, beautiful and perhaps naive. John F. Kennedy, a charming and ambitious politician from a family known for wielding influence. An encounter that, on the surface, might have seemed innocent, a young star meeting a well-connected figure. But according to chilling claims that have surfaced over the years, whispers from within Hollywood and D.C., circles, and supposed personal accounts that have allegedly been suppressed, that encounter, or perhaps a series of encounters, was anything but innocent. And now, we delve into the devastating claims, the alleged truth behind the unspeakable acts that some say scarred Elizabeth Taylor at the tender age of 15. The claim is stark that John F. Kennedy, a man admired by millions, committed what are described as unspeakable acts against a 15-year-old Elizabeth Taylor. Where do these claims originate? They are not part of widely published biographies or official accounts. Instead, they stem from alleged private conversations, rumored letters, supposed confessions made much later in life, and whispers that circulated in the tight-knit, often secretive world of old Hollywood and the powerful political elite. According to these unverified accounts, the encounter allegedly took place around 1947 or 1948. The exact location varies depending on the source. Some suggest a party in California where John F. Kennedy was visiting. Others point to a trip Elizabeth made to the East Coast, perhaps a private dinner or meeting orchestrated by influential people who knew both families. The details of the alleged unspeakable acts are deliberately vague in these whispered accounts, perhaps due to the sensitivity and horror of the accusation. They don't provide graphic specifics in the widely circulated rumors. However, the language used consistently implies a severe violation, a profound abuse of power and trust directed at a vulnerable minor. Terms like took advantage, preyed upon, violated her innocence, and left deeply traumatized are associated with these alleged accounts. The core accusation is that John F. Kennedy, a man significantly older and in a position of influence, used his power or charm to allegedly exploit and harm Elizabeth Taylor when she was just 15. Why would this story, if it has any truth to it, be suppressed? The reasons are powerful and obvious. Firstly, MGM. Elizabeth Taylor was one of their most valuable assets. Any scandal, particularly one involving a politician from a powerful family and accusations of this nature, would have been a catastrophic threat to her carefully crafted image and burgeoning career. The studio had immense power and motivation to bury any such rumors immediately, ensuring her silence through contracts, pressure, and potentially even threats. Secondly, the Kennedy family. Even in the 1940s, the Kennedys were a force to be reckoned with. Their ambition for higher office was already clear. An accusation of this magnitude against a young, rising member of the family would have been devastating, a scandal that could have ended John F. Kennedy's political future before it even truly began. The family was known for its ruthlessness in protecting its image and its members. It is entirely plausible they would have used their considerable influence, wealth, and connections to ensure such a story never saw the light of day. And what about Elizabeth herself, a 15-year-old girl, allegedly the victim of such an act? The shame, the fear, the potential for retribution from powerful figures, combined with the extreme pressure from her studio, would have made speaking out almost impossible. The society of the time was also vastly different. There was less understanding, less support, and far more victim-blaming surrounding such allegations. It's tragically understandable that a young girl in that position would feel she had no voice, or that speaking out would only lead to more pain and ruin. Sources that hint at this event are elusive and often disputed. Some point to alleged private journals or diaries of people close to Elizabeth Taylor, discovered long after their deaths. Others mention hushed conversations overheard in exclusive circles, stories passed down through generations of Hollywood insiders or political operatives. There are even claims of unsent letters or draft memoirs from Elizabeth herself that contained veiled references to a deeply traumatic experience in her youth involving a powerful man, references that were supposedly removed from final published versions. One prominent thread within these rumors suggests that Elizabeth Taylor confided in a trusted friend much later in life, perhaps during a period of vulnerability or when reflecting on her past traumas. This friend, or someone close to them, is then alleged to have eventually revealed fragments of the story, piecing together the horrifying accusation involving JFK. The language used in these rumored accounts is consistent in describing the profound impact this alleged event had on Elizabeth Taylor. It wasn't just a fleeting, uncomfortable encounter. It is described as a deeply damaging experience that left emotional scars. Some speculate that this trauma contributed to the complexities of her later personal life, her turbulent marriages, her struggles with addiction, her visible need for love and acceptance, yet often engaging in self-destructive relationship patterns. Could the alleged violation of her innocence at such a young, formative age have shaped her approach to men and relationships throughout her entire adult life? According to those who claim to know this secret, the answer is a chilling yes. The whispers also suggest that certain powerful figures within Hollywood and D.C. were aware of the incident, or at least the rumors surrounding it. Fixers were allegedly employed, not only by MGM but potentially by the Kennedy family, to ensure the story remained buried. Witnesses were supposedly silenced, records potentially destroyed, and anyone who dared to speak openly about it faced professional ruin or social ostracism. The very nature of this alleged event, linking a beloved American icon like Elizabeth Taylor with a revered president like John F. Kennedy through such a dark act, makes it almost unbelievable, almost impossible to confront. This is precisely why the rumors suggest it was so successfully hidden. It defies public perception. It challenges historical narratives, and it involves figures whose images were meticulously protected and glorified. But the question remains, is there truth to these claims? Are they merely malicious rumors? exaggerated whispers, or a desperate attempt to uncover a hidden history of abuse of power at the highest levels of both Hollywood and Washington. Without concrete, irrefutable evidence, the story remains in the realm of alleged secrets and buried truths. Yet, the persistence of these whispers, the consistency of the core accusation that a 15-year-old Elizabeth Taylor was allegedly harmed by John F. Kennedy, keeps this dark possibility alive in the lore of old Hollywood's hidden past. It serves as a stark reminder that behind the dazzling facade of fame and power, there can exist unimaginable pain and deeply guarded secrets. Elizabeth Taylor's life, even after the alleged events of her youth and the peak of her scandalous fame, continued to be one of immense public interest and personal challenge. She went on to marry 8 times to 7 men, most famously her 2 tumultuous marriages to Richard Burton, which captivated the world with their passion, their extravagance, and their dramatic public rows. These relationships were the stuff of tabloid legend, overshadowing almost everything else in her personal life. Beyond her dramatic love life, Elizabeth remained a working actress for many years, although the frequency of her film roles decreased later on. She also became a powerful advocate for causes she believed in. Following the death of her friend Rock Hudson, she became one of the first major celebrities to actively campaign for AIDS awareness and research, co-founding the American Foundation for AIDS Research, AMFAR, and establishing the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. This phase of her life revealed a woman of compassion, strength, and determination, using her fame for good. However, her later years were also marked by significant health problems. Elizabeth struggled with numerous illnesses, injuries, and operations throughout her life, including chronic back pain, hip replacements, and pneumonia. She faced addiction issues at various points and spent time in rehab. Her health battles were often public, portraying a picture of a woman constantly struggling, constantly in pain, yet somehow enduring. She was often photographed in a wheelchair, a stark contrast to the glamorous icon she once was. Her physical decline in later life was difficult to witness for many of her fans. She was a fighter, but her body had been through immense strain, both from the physical demands of her career and the toll of her personal struggles and illnesses. On March 23, 2011, Elizabeth Taylor passed away at the age of 79 from congestive heart failure. She died at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, surrounded by her children. Her death marked the end of an era, the passing of one of the last true stars of Hollywood's golden age. Elizabeth Taylor's legacy is complex and multifaceted. She was a legendary actress, an unparalleled beauty, a shrewd businesswoman, and a passionate humanitarian. Her films endure. Her iconic image is instantly recognizable, and her impact on both cinema and celebrity culture is undeniable. But her life was also a testament to the intense pressures and hidden dangers of fame. Beneath the diamonds and the glamour, she navigated immense personal pain, loss, addiction, and public scrutiny. And then there are the whispers, the unverified, yet persistent, claims of that horrifying encounter with John F. Kennedy when she was just a child. If these allegations hold any truth, they add another layer of profound tragedy to her already complex story. They paint a disturbing picture of how vulnerability and innocence could be exploited even at the highest echelons of power and fame in old Hollywood. Stories like this, even as rumors, serve as a crucial, albeit dark, reminder. They highlight the stark contrast between the glittering image projected by Hollywood and the often brutal, secretive realities faced by the individuals within it. They challenge us to look beyond the facade, to question the narratives we've been given, and to acknowledge that some of the deepest wounds, some of the most shocking secrets, may belong to the very icons we idolized. Elizabeth Taylor lived a life of extraordinary highs and devastating lows. Whether the story of JFK and her 15th year is a cruel falsehood or a buried truth, it remains a haunting possibility in the annals of Hollywood drama and secrets. A secret that, even in rumor, continues to whisper of the hidden costs of fame and the dark side of power. Stories like this, even as rumors, serve as a crucial, albeit dark, reminder. They highlight the stark contrast between the glittering image projected by Hollywood and the often brutal, secretive realities faced by the individuals within it. They challenge us to look beyond the facade, to question the narratives we've been given, and to acknowledge that some of the deepest wounds, some of the most shocking secrets, may belong to the very icons we idolized. Elizabeth Taylor lived a life of extraordinary highs and devastating lows. Whether the story of JFK and her 15th year is a cruel falsehood or a buried truth, it remains a haunting possibility in the annals of Hollywood drama and secrets. A secret that, even in rumor, continues to whisper of the hidden costs of fame and the dark side